Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Just on behalf of the BIM Institute, I'd just like to thank CanBIM for giving me the opportunity to come out here and talk. Just a bit on my travels. It took me 36 hours to get here, and I see I've been given 25 minutes to talk. I've also been warned that there are paintball snipers in the crowd if I overstep my 24 minutes. So without sort of any further ado, the presentation I thought I'd approach today was more about understanding how technology in an industry of social networking has revolutionized the industry in what we know today as social networking, and how can a construction environment adapt that communication in order to move forward and collaborate, as I think is the collaboration is the word that I keep hearing on the presentations, the previous presentations. So if we just look at BIM from the term big data, we're all familiar with the word big data. And currently we store huge amounts of data, not just in a construction project environment, but on a social capacity as well. If you take a mobile device example, we're all familiar with social networking. And the amount of data we store on our personal capacity is overwhelming. So just try to imagine that just how Google alone tracks the amount of data we work with on a personal, within social environment, knows where we are, knows our location. It tracks what apps we're using. So the concept behind social networking is this is a phrase that I actually took from a presentation that I once listened to. The construction industry provides a shelter for mankind to live in and an infrastructure for society to function in. Unfortunately, society has become dysfunctional because of social networking. Right? So we tend to have abused the tools that we're using to communicate and have lost the ability to function in society because we don't do face-to-face communication anymore. This is an image that I thought I'd bring sort of to chat about. When I sat at Terminal 3 coming on my sort of transit over to Canada, the charging station, I counted 17 mobile devices charging at one single time, including one of mine. But what I did notice is that the youths sitting around the charge stations had other devices in their hands while they were waiting for the other device to charge. Right? So we've become disconnected from each other just because of social networking has taken over our day-to-day lives. But it has taught us something. It's educating us on how to communicate. All right. I thought I'd share this slide with you. It's taken back in 2005 of a typical concert where we're all familiar with. We go there to enjoy ourselves, and we keep the memory. And in the background, you can actually see one or two individuals recording that event, taking it and sharing it with other people. That's 2005. 10 years later, we have a different scenario. Everyone is recording stills in real time. We're sharing it at the moment with the world. And this allows us to go back and view information as well as the moment we had with others. And obviously, if you attend concerts and you know concerts, I assume this is not a Rammstein-type concert. So it depends on what you are wanting to do with your device and sort of where you're going to record that information and what you're going to do with it. But coming from South Africa, I wanted to share some statistics with you, which really is a good understanding of how education is improving the way we communicate and how the construction industry could learn from it. In 2008, Africa's connection to internet was controlled by one line, which we knew as the CCOM line. It was a 1.2 gigabyte line, and it offered an average household a 1 meg up download of internet. Right. So that was 2008. It's not so long ago. 2010, we were fortunate enough to get the World Cup soccer, and through foreign investments and infrastructure development, we got what we refer to as the WAX line, better known as the Octopus line, which is a 5 terabyte line. So suddenly my internet household activity went from 1 meg to 4 meg. Right? I could now start watching videos with a 10-minute buffering period. Try to imagine trying to do BIM on 4 megs. It's not going to happen. All right? So if we just look at the technology prevalence, and this is a report given to us by GMSA in London. For the past 5 years, sub-Saharan Africa has reigned as one of the world's fastest growing mobile regions, where the subscriber growth rate is twice the global average. Right? So 41% of the population last year was subscribed to a mobile device. If you just looked at the internet per user of countries, top of the list is Sweden. 95% of the population use internet, followed by United Kingdom, followed by Canada, 86, United States, 84, South Africa, 48. Half of our population of 60 million people have access to internet. But if we go and look at further, of a population of 53 million, there's around about 80 million mobile connections. That means that for each individual in South Africa owns 2 cell phones. Right? So if we look at the cell phone subscription per 100 people living in South Africa, there are 146 cell phone subscribers per 100. UK 125, 124 Sweden, United States 95, and Canada 81. Okay. So what is my point here is, in terms of a mobile device, what is the population doing with it? In the statistics the report that we found is that 86% of people who have a mobile device in South Africa use it for social networking. 13% use it for education process. So that means in 7 years, a mobile device has educated a population on how to do social media. That means I can tweet, hashtag, and I've learned how to manage information quickly between different parties. I've shared information, and I have a tool that's managing it for me. I don't have to worry about it. It does it for me. Something we're not very familiar with in construction. We're too worried about holding on to information and not letting go. I'm a quantity surveyor by profession. I don't let go of that intellectual knowledge. So the question is then, data explosion is changing the way we work. So for this information and data starts to increase to a point where it can become almost overwhelming. But the point is, what can we learn from social media in a construction environment? We're certainly not going to apply Twitter and Facebook and other social media tools into a construction environment. But what we can take away from it is how effectively they have revolutionized an industry to allow people to communicate from an uneducated society to an educated society through social networking. This is a picture I found in Hague, Netherlands, where the Dutch police are using the birds of prey to swoop down and pluck drones out of the sky. So it's traditional versus the advanced. Something we're also too very familiar with in construction. We have very high-powered executives who are extremely knowledgeable and have a lot of experience in the industry. But we fail to accept the advancement of technology. We have failed to use the youths that are up and coming with the education and the advancement of technology. So the question is, how do we bring these two together? Right? And that's a challenge I think we're going to face, is taking new technology in a building and information modeling environment and using the experience that we have from management and uniting the two to creating a platform for collaboration. This is just something I think we're all too familiar with, is where did you save it? I've worked with many document management systems in my past, and I do specialize in information management. But when I save something, how do I find it? Right? How do I communicate it to someone else? It's in SharePoint. It's in Documentum. It's saved. What are you worried about? We don't need it. How do you bring that data with communication versus documentation into a modeling environment where we can create a unique platform to share information in a secure environment? Here's a typical example, right? Information passes backwards and forwards. Emails, we're familiar with it. Could be even social networking, messaging, faxing. Each company controls its own correspondence. right? So here's a good example of where things go wrong. A contractor generates a typical RFI, a request for information, and let's say it's on clash detection with a security door. The architect responds with a site instruction, draws up a revised drawing, the changes are made, which leads to a request for quote. Right? That request for quote then leads to, let's say, a variation order, which may in an NEC3 environment lead to a compensation event created by an early warning. That may lead to a claim, then to a payment certificate. The point I'm trying to make is each acronym or process that I've referred to is done by an individual and a different application in a different organization or for a different department. How do we bring that together? How do we create that cradle to grave and sync that information together? Hashtag, how do you do it at Twitter? Social networking. It gives you the opportunity to create a metadata and apply it and associate it with a document. Right? We're all too familiar with everything on the right. That's document management. It's standard. What changes in the company is on the left. So if it's a design system, a software analysis type application, if it's a correspondence tool, how do you take that information and associate it with all the other information outside of a model? Okay, and we've done that very well with common data environment. Something we're all very familiar with is the CDE. What we haven't managed to successfully do is give people accessibility to that information. Understand processes within an organization as well as on a project. We don't seem to educate people on the processes within the project environment. Creation and the usage of information. Where is it stored? How do I access it? And who manages it? Sharing and collaboration, right? Those platforms that we are given of choice, let's say it may be an Aconex or any other document management system, that is usually enforced or mandated by the client. So we enforce ourselves to use the tools that we are given, very similar to social networking. We are forced to use Twitter as a means of social networking because of peer pressure. If you don't use it, then you don't know what's going on. Same applies in construction. If you don't use the cloud-based collaborative solution you're given, how do you collaborate? Sustainability, and last of all, control. No matter what industry you're in or what role you play, control is key. You have to have control. As a manager, you don't manage information, you manage resources. It's not my job. I'm not an architect. I don't want to be one. But I need information, and I need to know that that architect is being taken on and he's doing his job incorrectly. And I need to follow him in real time. And I need to be able to apply correspondence and attach it to a drawing. I need to take something out of the bill of quantities and attach it and associate that information together on a platform where it is transparent and I can hold resources accountable for their actions. So understanding the BIM matrix, what is it? Is it more than just binary? It's a lot more than that, all right? It's about how we bring information together. That could be through an API. It could be through Excel, just moving data. The point I'm trying to make, it's more than binary. It's a choice. It's a choice you as an individual or a company can make in order to be a successful project. And how you can collaborate is up to the team to decide on what is the platform of choice to do that collaboration. So this is my sort of my holy grail image. On the far right, your left, is document management. Document management is no more than a flat file. It's a dead document environment. It's a repository where we put information. Outside of that, I still have to look at how we're going to handle the workflows on the BIM project from a design conceptual environment moving right through to an asset management environment. I have to look at the forms. May it be contract management, pre-qualification management, tender management, buy and supply with my team. Not to forget about I have to have a choice of storage. Is it in the cloud? Have I got offline synchronization? Do I have web access? What's my mobile access? And how do I integrate with third-party applications? So all of this pieces around a wonderful model, which we understand as building information modeling. But BIM is not just about the modeling aspect. It's about business information mobility, business information management. It's how do we manage information in a secure environment. This is where I come back to what I refer to as hashtag. Let's take that security door that I'm referring to. Right? In a unified code environment, all my products or my suppliers is coded. That is only the part of BIM that we all understand from a design perspective. Outside of that, how do I connect the various other applications that are also important? I have catalogs, I have building specifications, I have attachments, I have reminders, I have other means of communication outside of Outlook. How do I attach that? I may use a form of social media. So the term that comes to me is hashtag. Hashtag allows me to use another word as Google refers it to as a metadata, right? And they've very cleverly done that. If you look at Google's philosophy is one click away from information. We do that by our search module. But behind that is someone's connecting the dots. The platform is doing the operation for us. And that's what we have to understand with BIM, is more about understanding the model, but it's about educating people on how to connect. How do we connect and correspond and share information in a secure environment and learn from the very industry that's revolutionized us to communicate? This is a slide that you might be all very familiar with recently through social media, through IBM. Right? All of these particular companies have revolutionized their industry to become smarter and more efficient in accessing data. So how can we revolutionize our own construction industry, and what current platform can we put there to be proud of to say it doesn't own data, it's purely a platform of choice that we all as the industry have agreed upon that it's a way to collaborate. So in closing, in my 23 years of experience from starting out as a quantity surveyor and moving into information technology, no matter what my role as a manager was, the one thing that stood out for me was control. How do you control the resources? How do you control the staff that you've employed on a project and you're paying them to do their job? How do you manage them in real time? Right? And that remains still the key point to address this address, is that how do we control people with correspondence and communicating in a real-time environment where we can all agree on a platform of choice to correspond, share data, share information. That brings me to the end of my slide, and I just want to say thanks very much, and I hope I've kept you entertained on social media and the connection between that and the construction industry. Thanks very much.
So, questions for Vaughn? I'll start it off. Vaughn, what do you see as the future for document control and management, and data management, not only from the industry in South Africa, which I think would probably correlate to what we're doing right now in North America, but throughout the world? So what do you think that platform will look like, and the direction that it's going to affect and have an impact on the design aspect?
I think it's very important to understand that you cannot do BIM without document management, right? And the tool of choice is entirely up to the organization or the project team on how they're going to collaborate. The question is, who is controlling the information, and how is that information going to be shared in the team to be used again somehow in a sustainable environment?
Right. Oh, good point. Good point. Any other questions for Vaughn? So you think there's platforms that are developing that are moving in that direction, that's going to facilitate collaboration, and through collaboration, document control is obviously a key factor of that?
Absolutely. There's many platforms out there. Just over the top of my head, Aconex 4 projects, I'm going to say 360 Docs, which I can see has just recently launched. These platforms are all serving a good purpose in terms of sharing information. The key is access, unlimited access to information. As soon as it becomes user-based, and we provide licenses to users, that is where the downfall starts, because we tend to hold control and not give access to projects because of a user license issue. So we've got to get away from understanding that licensing should not be the issue in sharing information. It should be unlimited access to a controlled environment where document management systems such as Aconex, for projects, ASITE would come to mind, do that and offer that platform as an unlimited user license choice.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting. Great. Questions? Any last questions? No? Excellent. Thank you very much, Vaughn.
Thanks very much.
For your time and for your presentation.